Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Pet, and welcome to the all-new Kia Niro. I'm here today on the UK press drives of the Niro Hybrid and plug-in hybrid. Now Niro is one of my favourite all EVs, but I've never driven the hybrid variant, so I'm really looking forward to today. I'm going to put both the plug-in and hybrid back to back in what I think is going to be a really interesting review. But before we go any further, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really does help the channel. And if you want to be notified of new videos hitting the channel, make sure you ring that notification bell as well. Now I've brought the Niro out to find some incredible driving roads, one of which is just behind me. But before we get onto the driving bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about my backstory with Kia and with the Niro. The Niro has quite a fond spot in my heart because a couple of years ago I had one of these. When I was filming Vintage Voltage, we drove the e-Niro, the full battery electric vehicle version, all the way to Hamburg and back. It was an incredible experience. I mean, we had a few challenges with the charging infrastructure, as you'd imagine, but the car itself was super impressive. And since then, I've had my long-term Kia Sorento, I've driven the EV6, and most recently I drove the Sportage. So when I got invited today to the press drives of the new Niro, I was really excited to see what they were going to do with a car that I actually thought was really, really capable to start with. So in this video, I'm actually going to drive two variants of the Niro that we have available today. This, the plug-in hybrid version, and then I'll also have a quick go in the hybrid. The full battery electric vehicle is coming very soon, but they just don't have one today for us to have a play with. So let's just walk around this PHEV version and talk about the styling, because I think the old Niro was quite understated. It was a little bit boxy at the back, and what they've done to the new one is bring in all the design elements that I'm starting to see in other Kias that I really like. There's little bits of EV6, and thankfully there's also bits of Sportage, because I think the new Kia Sportage is a mega looking thing. So off the bat, I think this looks like a really cool little car. Front end wise, I just think it's mean and purposeful. It's got a quirky edge to it, and I quite like that about the car. So I do like the front end styling. Let's have a wander around the back. We'll have a quick look at the boot and Practicality, but that rear view isn't bad either. Now, although I'm a fan of the old Niro, I was never a big fan of the rear end of it. I just thought the rear end view was a little bit square and lacked interest. Well, that's certainly not the case for this new car. It's really been changed up quite a bit at the rear. There's a few interesting design elements. Firstly, I think these lights, they do remind me of one of the original kind of Ford Focuses. But if you look really carefully in there, you can actually get your hand in there, and then there's an air channel that goes through this back panel here. Now, I'm not so sure about that contrast colour on that back panel, but it certainly makes it stand out. So there's a lot of air management going on around there. There's a little spoiler on the roof line. And all in all, I think it's a really good looking rear end of the car. Always reminds me, you know, you've got the 7-year warranty sticker on there. That, for me, that's one brilliant reason to buy a Kia straight off the bat. Now, practicality wise, in here, it's a pretty good sized boot. There is kind of underneath the floor, it's where you've got things like your tyre inflation kit. Also, we've got a couple of spare charge cables in here. There's nowhere actually to store these. My experience of having these as a PHEV, normally these end up in the shed and I don't carry them with me, but the annoying thing today is you can hear them sliding around in the back of the car. There's a pretty good amount of space in here. Sadly, I don't have my bike with me today or either of the dogs, but I know when we drove one of these to Hamburg, and it would be a similar footprint of car, I was amazed at how much stuff we got in the back, which included the gearbox for a Porsche Speedster. So you can certainly get a decent amount of space in the back, boot-wise, and certainly if you drop the seats, you can. Let's have a look at what the rear passenger comfort is like. Oh. Now, I'm impressed by that because this seat's set for me, as I always say on these videos, 34-inch inside leg, 6'3" before anybody asks in the comments. Plenty of room in here. Now, this car has a sunroof. I'm not going to call it a pan roof or a panoramic roof because it is only literally as far as the front seats. It doesn't kind of extend all the way back. It's a little bit more old school. So it's still a little bit more airy and light in here, but not as light as it could be. Plenty of room in here. I've got USB charge ports in the back of the seats, but also this car, just like the EV6, if you've seen my video on that, has the ability, although it's a PHEV, it doesn't have a massive battery, more on the battery spec shortly, you can actually plug other things into this car. So there is actually a 220 volt electric point just there. So you can plug a normal laptop in there without having to worry about powering it off a USB-C port. So I think that's quite cool. This is the level 4 car. Again, more on the specs when I jump in the front, but this has got heated seats in the back. Let's go and have a look in the front and tell you more about the spec levels. Now, one of the things I really like about Kia is how easy they are to spec and buy. Because basically you have 3 trim levels, 2, 3 and 4. There's a £2,750 difference between each trim level, and as you go up the trim levels, you get more kit and nicer wheels and that kind of thing. This is a level 4 plug-in hybrid, so this is actually the most expensive Niro that you can buy, and it's got all the toys on it. And I think then all you really have to do is choose what colour you want. From a interior point of view, first things first, there are a couple of materials in here which I really, really like. There's a material here just on the dash, and it's on the door cards as well. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it has an almost kind of polished granite look to it. It looks really, really cool. Lots of piano black. Let me start the car up. It's just there. First things first, there's a lot of familiarity here because if you've driven, I've just got out of a Hyundai i20N or Kia, they have the same infotainment system pretty much. So it looks very, very similar, and certainly having driven EV6 and Sportage, all of that's come over into the new Niro. And I think the cabin is leaps and bounds ahead of the old Niro. There's a main strip along here, which is quite cool because it's black when the car's turned off, and it's a dual function strip. So at the moment, it's got details. I can go to my map, my nav, my radio, my media, and then overall car setup. Or if I push this little button, it turns into my air conditioning controls. Everything else is done through the main media screen. And it's a really nice display. It's integrated with the main display. So although it's kind of sticking up out the dash, because the dash above wraps around it, I just think it looks really, really cool. This level 4 model has a head-up display, which is really good. Having driven the car here, not only does it have speed sign recognition, but it has some other warning signs as well. So I got a notification of a school warning sign, which I thought was quite a nice touch, although the advanced driver in me says you should be looking out the window yourself to spot things like that. There are some real buttons down here. So this car's got heated and vented seats. And a heated steering wheel, and then there's a button here to force the car into EV mode, which we will explore very, very shortly. Final things, just in terms of storage, I've got a wireless charge mat for my phone just there, which has a really nice rubberized backing so your phone doesn't slide around, and you've got some charge ports. You've got a USB connector there to plug your phone into, pair up things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's a USB-C charge port and a normal 12 volt socket there as well. And then you've got a tiny little storage bin here. But what I like about this is it's kind of configurable. So you can take out this divider, put it back in. And then I really like these. They're like, it's where you put your cups. But if you slide them both back like that, you've got an open storage. If you want to put a cup, you push the little button there and they slide round. Really nice bit of design work, that. And then everything else is nice. So I reckon we go out. Now, what I want to do now is I want to explore two cars in one video. So in this car, because it's a plug-in hybrid, I want to explore all EV running, I want to explore eco and then sport mode. And then we'll jump in the hybrid and we'll have a look at that and see how that is to drive as well. So first things first we need to do is go and find some nice roads to do some EV only running. So let's have a quick rundown of the model range. The Niro comes with a choice of hybrid, plug-in hybrid and pure electric powertrains. The Niro Hybrid features Kia's Smartstream 1.6 litre gasoline direct injection engine paired with a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. This is combined with a 32 kilowatt or 43 bhp electric motor, giving the powertrain a combined maximum power of 139 bhp. Pricing for the hybrid starts from £27,745 and rises to £33,245. Like the hybrid, the plug-in hybrid is powered by the same 1.6 litre engine and has the same gearbox. However, it's paired with a larger 62 kilowatt or 83 bhp electric motor, resulting in a combined power output of 180 bhp. PHEV models are priced from £33,525 all the way to £39,025 for this top-spec 4 model. Now this is a plug-in hybrid and it has the ability to run as a pure EV. There's a little EV button here. You can push it and change it between hybrid mode, automatic mode or full electric mode. And we're in full electric mode. Now, in terms of range, Kia is stating up to 40 miles of range in full electric. And the electric motor is about 83 horsepower. So it's certainly not going to set the world on fire as a pure EV. But in my experience, running a car like this in urban driving is just brilliant, because for local runs to the shops, if you've got kids dropping them off at school or anything in your sort of most of our daily commutes, you're going to be running an EV. You know, you might never actually fire up the petrol engine. And I know when I had the Sorento, you know, we had long periods of time when we really didn't use that much petrol. If you've got the ability to charge at home, the nice thing about a plug-in hybrid is the battery pack isn't enormous, so you can charge them overnight quite happily on just a normal 3-pin electric wall socket, or if like me you've got a 7 kilowatt charger wall box at home, you can charge them in just a few hours. And as long as you remember to plug them in, they're just brilliant things. One of the things I would like, and I've stated this in PHEV videos before, is 40 miles I could just do with a little bit more than that. And my experience would say you're going to get close to 40 in this, certainly 35. To have 60 or maybe 80 miles of pure EV running would make this car even more attractive for me. But it's funny, talking to Kia today, there's a real compromise between the extra size and weight of the batteries, the packaging required, the weight of the vehicle, and that's why it's no coincidence probably that most plug-in hybrids have that kind of 40 miles of range. And plus, you know, if you look at the research, the standard commute, daily commute, is normally sort of, you know, less than 40 miles, and that means that you can get away with running EV all the time. So the next thing we need to do is, this car will run at speeds, you know, up to the national speed limit as a pure electric car. You're going to run the battery down quite quickly if you do that. But as soon as you want to go on to a little bit more of a main road, or you want to push on and have some fun down a B road, you really need to start using the hybrid part of this car, where the petrol engine and the electric motor work together, either to give you efficiency or to give you fun. So first up, let's look at efficiency, and then we'll go and have some fun. So EV driving may well be all well and good around, if you like, an urban environment in a city or a village. But when you get out on the open road, I've got two drive modes in the car. I've got a sport and an eco mode. So I'm going to go into eco mode and I'm going to run in hybrid mode or automatic. It's just going to work out the best way to use the petrol and electric motor combined. Now for me, the challenge with the eco mode is the throttle's just a little bit dead. It doesn't have the zip that I would want. But the argument would be if you're on a dual carriageway like this, it doesn't really matter. You stick it in cruise control, it doesn't really matter that much. Now, it's difficult for me to comment on the fuel efficiency of the car because I'm not going to be in it for very long today. This car only has 236 miles on the clock. It is spankers, box fresh. However, if I go into the drive information, so since I've had the car and the running I've been doing, I've averaged 77 miles to the gallon because of that combination of I've been using some electric and some hybrid running. If I go into since refueling, now admittedly that is only 35 miles ago, the car's averaging 55 miles to the gallon. And again, when you look at the MPG figures for a hybrid, you have to be really, really careful because, you know, let's say you do a journey that is 50 miles long and you do 40 miles of that in pure EV running, you're actually only using petrol for 10 miles, but your miles per gallon figure will be calculated over the 50 miles. And that's why when you look at some hybrids and you see figures quoted, 100, 150, 200 miles to the gallon, you have to be careful what kind of efficiency tests that they're doing. My experience in one of these kind of or similar Kia platform is certainly mid to high 40s is a target that you could easily aim at on a longer journey. I can't comment exactly what this Niro will do because I'm simply not going to have it for long enough. But I think the efficiency figures on a longer journey are still going to be pretty decent. But it's the efficiency figures on your short duration journeys, which is where a normal internal combustion engine is pretty shocking, because you've got the kind of warm-up, start-up phases. In this, you can run that on EV, and therefore your shorter, punchy journeys will give you really, really good efficiency. Now, on a dual carriageway like this, I have adaptive cruise control, I have lane departure assistance, I have all the modern-day gimmicks that I could possibly want. But what I'm not getting is any fun. So I think we go and find some punchy B-road and we stick it in sport mode and see what this Niro can do in terms of grin generation. Now then, let's see what this is like in sport mode. So in sport mode, I've got the combination of the little 1.6 litre petrol engine and that 83 horsepower electric motor, combined power output 180 bhp, and I reckon that should be good enough for a few miles. Now, one of the things you'll notice straight away once you start moving on a little bit in this car is it is relatively softly sprung, which is nice for a nice comforting ride. But what that translates to when you start chucking it into a corner or two is it does have a little bit of wallow in a kind of good way, in that you do feel the car moving. It's certainly not flat. What I would say though is when it does start to pitch and you start to bend it into a corner like that one, you then start to feel the weight of the car, and dynamically, see, there's a little bit of understeer there, and I'm just not pushing on massively at all. So from a sporty point of view, when you chuck it round some corners, you get a little bit more lean into the corner than I've seen in recent cars because of that softly sprung suspension. But the nice thing about that is you get a really nice compliant ride. So you give them with one and taken away with the other. When you come into a tighter bend like this one, if I just come onto the brakes are pretty good, but then you just feel that mass of the car, a little bit of body roll, bit of a kick down to the engine, and then you've got enough pull out of the corners. It's certainly not a slow car. It's got quite a nice turn of pace. Hey look, it's not a sports car, it's 180 brake. However, what that translates to down a nice bit of B-road like this is a good sporty drive and a lot of fun. Okay, so we are now in a hybrid Niro, but this is a level 2 trim spec, and we've just come out of a plug-in hybrid at level 4. So we've gone from the most expensive Niro in the range to the entry-level Niro. And the level 2 spec in here, straight away you can tell the difference. There are some obvious differences. The gear selector is different. You don't have a rotational dial anymore. You've got this kind of movable lever. The infotainment screen in the level 4, it was a continual sweep blended together. This is now 2 separate screens with a kind of background. I'm not a big fan of that, if I'm honest. You've got a real key rather than the type you put in your pocket and hit a start go button. And then just things like the seats are a slightly cheaper feel, and some of the plastics and materials in here are cheaper. But then to go from level 2 through 3 all the way to 4 is best part of £5,500 difference. So it's bound to feel different. Now, obviously, if you've got a budget and you have to stick to a budget, then I understand level 2. For me, I can feel a justification in the higher level trim spec. It just felt like a nicer, more premium place to be. Eco mode doesn't feel that different to drive, to be honest. This is a hybrid drivetrain now, so there's no all EV running. The motor and the battery pack are there to kind of assist efficiency or performance. So we're on a cracking bit of road. So let's just drop it up into sport mode and just see the difference. So if I put my foot down a little bit, it doesn't have nearly the response the plug-in hybrid has. It's just kicked down there a little bit to help me out just a little bit more. The car's still quite softly sprung, so it's got a little bit of movement and a little bit of roll in the corner, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just not as flat and as squat as some of the, if you like, more sport-oriented cars I've driven. It covers the road nicely, it soaks up the bumps really, really nicely, but when you do start to chuck it through a corner, just like the plug-in hybrid, you can just start to feel the mass of the car a little bit. Brakes are pretty good. Now remember that one of the ways you're going to charge up the battery pack in the car is through braking and engine braking and those types of things. There's no option to plug in the car and charge up the battery pack. I'm not going to call it a self-charging hybrid. I'll get into trouble with the internet if I do. And for me, it's a nice car down here, but I think from a performance perspective, I think the plug-in hybrid would be my choice. But it's pretty good round the corners, pretty good. So, plenty to think about, plenty to chew the cud on. So I reckon we head back to the vineyard and I give you my final impressions on the new Kia Niro. Hybrid and plug-in hybrid. I'm just gutted the electric one wasn't here, because I reckon that car is going to be absolutely brilliant. Whew, that was a busy day of driving, but a fascinating day. What a car. I'm a big Kia fan anyway. I've been lucky, I've spent a lot of time in a Sorento. I had a very short spell in the Sportage, but loved it. But I really have been looking forward to seeing what they'll do with the Niro. The Niro is their second best-selling Kia EV. I can't wait to see the full BEV version, but the hybrid and plug-in hybrid that I've driven today, very impressive really. For me, my pick of the bunch would be the plug-in hybrid. I just think that balance of pure EV running, especially for your local journeys, and then on a longer run, you've kind of got the best of both worlds, and a little bit more punch, a little bit more of a sporty drive for me, and it's almost like 3 cars in one. If I had a criticism, I think it would be really nice to be able to firm the dampers up a little bit. In sport mode, I just felt that the car was just a little bit wallowy in the corners, just moved a little bit too much. I appreciate that gives you a nice, comfortable ride. It soaks the bumps up, but when you pitch the car into a corner, that body roll just makes you realise that the car's got some mass and it's just a little bit unsettling. I know it's not a sports car, but the ability just to firm things up would be nice. Fit and finish, I thought it was really interesting driving the difference between a level 4 and a level 2. I've always been the kind of guy who would buy the highest spec car that I can afford within my budget. And I appreciate some people buying won't have the option. They'll only be able to afford level 2. but there is a significant difference between level 2 and level 4. I didn't have a look inside a level 3, but you know, the infotainment system screens, the materials used, the seats, the level 4 just felt so much more premium and so less Kia, and that's not meant in a nasty or horrible way. I'd love to know what you think. Which would yours be, your choice? Would you go hybrid or plug-in hybrid, or would you wait for the full battery electric vehicle? Put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoy that video, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. A big thank you to Kia UK for the invite today. All the driving's done now. I can now go in and have a hard-earned cold beer because I don't have to drive anymore. But I'll see you on the next film, guys. You take care. Drive safe.